A person working at Home Depot was fired for refusing to print a poster for a Charlie Kirk memorial. Office Depot responded, calling that behavior unacceptable and insensitive. In the last week, many people have been removed from their jobs after posting comments about Charlie Kirk's death online and through their social media. And now there are questions rising about the legality of an employee's termination. So we don't know anything about that. That's why we bring in our 9 News legal expert, Whitney Traylor, because this is really a complicated situation that we've been reading about. So where does the analysis start? Like with employment law? Is that how it starts?
Well, it is complicated, and in a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, it's hard to get into all of it and all these various situations. But yeah, it really is. It's an employment law issue, but then there's a question, are we talking about public employees versus private employees? And if you're a public employee, because you have First Amendment rights against the government, so that becomes an issue. And then it's a question of, are you speaking as a private citizen or as an employee? Did it bring disrepute on the company? So each case is going to be different, but it is interesting, as we were talking on the break, how Charlie Kirk really stood for saying whatever offensive, rude, aggressive, whatever it may have been, and now people are saying, we don't want you to say anything about him, really trying to quash those First Amendment rights, which I think is a little disingenuous based on the circumstance.
So would a private company have more leverage, so to speak, to be able to terminate someone, or if they don't agree with their point of view? Is that even legal? Yeah,
I think that, well, it depends, I mean, on the various factors. But yes, most private employers are going to have more rights because most private employees are at-will employees. So that means they can be fired for a good reason, a bad reason, really no reason at all, as long as it's not discriminatory, based on protected traits or these kind of things. So there's certain protections. And in Colorado, it's interesting too, because which makes it complicated. I think 4 or 5 states have a lawful off-duty conduct statute, which says you can't be fired. It's also known as the smokers' rights statute. So you can't be fired for activity that's lawful that you engage in off-duty when you're not at work and you're not on site. So for example, if you smoke cigarettes, they can't fire you for that because that's a legal right. But there's all kinds of nuances to that, but that is one argument that you could make. In the Office Depot situation, I think the issue is a little more straightforward because they could argue, hey, this is insubordination, you didn't do your job, this wasn't hate speech targeted at you or a specific group, it was just this flyer. So there it's probably a little bit easier, but a lot of these situations are really nuanced.
Yeah, it's you didn't do your job in that respect, and that's a little. But part of it too is like when we talk about social media, you have to be careful if it's your private social media or if it's anywhere attached to what you do for a profession.
Yeah,
that's a big factor in this, and people they think with emotion sometimes, and they just don't think with their head. Like, wait a minute, is it really important I express this right now?
Right. I mean, that's a great argument, Kim, but I think the counter argument is, hey, this is part of our Bill of Rights. This is our protection. This is what America's about, is being able to do what you want and say what you want. But the company can then, of course, say, hey, this is bringing disrepute on the company. This is
reflecting on us.
It's reflecting on us. Are you, do you have your title in your social media? Is there a way that it could be tied to us? So that's, that's really the issue. And a lot of companies will have, these may be private policies. So they may have company policy about social media, use social media, because it could reflect on them. If you have a uniform, there's all these different factors. But because you're an at-will employee, I think the private employers, back to your question, Sam, really have more leverage, I think, than public employers.
And we have less than 30 seconds, but does that all supersede freedom of speech?
Well,
that's where it gets confusing to me.
Right. So with freedom of speech, it depends the way they do the analysis. So if you work for the government, the federal, state, city government, you do have these certain protections. And they actually said in the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to life, liberty, or property, and that can't be taken without due process. And they've said your job is your property right. But when it comes to speech, the question is, were you acting as a private citizen or as an employee? If you're acting as an employee, then they may be able to fire you. If you're acting as a private citizen, are you saying something that relates to the public concern? If so, you have more protections there. So the analysis is a little complex, but right now I think the takeaway is that, yeah, you do have these speech protections, but they're not absolute.
Yeah, there is so much more to get into
Yeah.
with this because the Supreme Court decisions, and, the cake shop here in Colorado. But
Yes.
hopefully, we'll get some clarification and we'll bring you back.
Yeah.
Because you understand it and we don't.
Let's give me about 10 minutes and we'll be able to get into it.
maybe an hour.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Whitney.
Sure.